Today I decided to talk about the Max Payne series. This is a series of games that started in 2001 and has continued all the way up into 2012. And Remedy, the people who made the original two games, are actually in the process of making a remake of the first two. The remake will be available on modern systems, and apparently it's going to combine the first two games into one big game. I'm very much looking forward to that. So that kind of inspired me to put together this list of my ranking of the Max Payne franchise from worst to best. So without further ado, let's get started. Coming into fourth place is the Game Boy Advance version of Max Payne. This is actually a really good port of the original game. Basically took the original Max Payne game and turned it into a 16-bit isometric shooter. What's great is pretty much everything from the original game is in this game. All the same levels, pretty much the same design. Some of the levels have been shrunken down a little bit, but it's pretty much all there. The gunplay is great this time around and plays just like the console and PC versions. L is dodge, R is shoot. You have the select button to pull up the weapons menu. You walk around with the D-pad. It actually works really well. It feels a lot like the original Max Payne game, just shrunk down and kind of simplified for the handheld console. Surprisingly, one of the most violent Game Boy Advance games, retaining its M rating, and it's pretty bloody and gory for a little small GBA game. This is a great version of the original, and sadly, not a lot of people even know about this version. It's kind of been forgotten to time. But if you have yourself a GBA and you want to experience all the Max Payne games, I do very much recommend this one. Coming in third place is Rockstar's Max Payne 3. I say Rockstar's Max Payne 3 because unlike the first two games and the Game Boy port, Remedy really had nothing to do with this one. It's a pretty damn good game. It was the last of the franchise up until the remake that's coming out. The story is actually pretty damn good this time around of Max going to Sao Paulo, Brazil, all these years after Max Payne 2. He's kind of become an alcoholic and something of a recluse, and he kind of finds meaning to live again in saving this family from these drug lords. It has great graphics, a damn good soundtrack, and really fun gameplay. If we're talking pure gameplay, this is probably the best of the three games. But there is one thing that really holds the game back, and that has to be the cutscenes. One thing I cannot stand about this game is because the game is very cinematic and has a bunch of in-game cutscenes that do use the in-game cinematics, but because the game is so advanced for the time, the cinematics took a long time to load. It's not a problem at first, because you want to hear the story and see what's going on, and you're having a good time. But if I'm playing through the game and subsequent replays, you just want to skip the damn cutscenes to get to the gameplay. Even if you play the game on Xbox One, you still can't skip the cutscenes, despite the fact that Xbox One is more than powerful enough to handle skipping those cutscenes. And so every time you play through the game, you shoot like 4 or 5 guys. You see a 1-minute cutscene you can't skip. You shoot about 10 more guys, another 1-minute cutscene, and it just goes on. And it drags the game down. First two games had in-game cinematics that were like a comic book, and I love that. This one decided to completely drop that and just go for in-game cutscenes. But I'd say, hell, bring back the comic book panels, and I hope they do in the remake. I'm looking forward to see the game in high def, the first two. I think it's going to be a full top-to-bottom remake, which is great, but please do not go this route to where I can't skip the cutscenes, because, yes, the game is fun, but it's like watching a movie every time you put it in. A fun game, but it is overly cinematic. Such a big fan of this game that I went and bought the special edition when it first came out. Surprisingly enough, this is a huge box set. It literally comes with crime scene photos, a bullet keychain, which I sadly lost, and it also has a big statue of Max Payne himself. It's actually pretty detailed and has a lot of cool stuff in it, even little bullets on the ground. It's a little bit dusty, I haven't cleaned it in a while, but it's a damn cool little addition that was thrown into the set as well. It must have been my lucky day when I bought this game, because the guy actually sold it to me for just $59.99, and this was a brand new game at the time, which is what they went for. So I got the box set, statue and all, for $60, which was a great deal back in the day. A good game, but a little bit lacking in the replay department. I very much debated where to go with number 2, because I love these first two games so damn much, and it was really hard to decide which one to put on here. But ultimately, I had to go with my gut, and honestly, this is how I feel. And number 2, we have to go with the original Max Payne. This game is great, and it's one of my favorite shooters of all time. It's available on PC consoles as well as the PS2, but I always loved the Xbox version, which is the one that I have here. This is a great game about a cop named Max whose family is slaughtered, and he has to take revenge and find their killers a whole year or two later. And along the way, you find that your family's murder is much deeper than just a break-in, and you see a massive conspiracy that your wife was caught up in that led to her death. And so you have to take revenge and go around New York as a rogue cop. The law doesn't matter to Max, and he's going to do what he can to avenge his family in this dark story about a man with nothing to lose. I adore this game, and I think it's one of the best shooters ever put on the market. I really do enjoy the gameplay, and I think even 23 years removed from its original release, it still plays great. What's great too, if you have the original version of the game, you can even see the Twin Towers in certain parts of the game because it came out right before 9/11 happened. It's one of the last games to actually feature them. And honestly, everything about the game captures New York in such an amazing way. From the snow-covered streets, because the game takes place during the wintertime, to the massive buildings. It just feels like you're in New York City through this entire game. James McCaffrey, who voiced Max Payne, does a great job as the character in this game and the other two. May he rest in peace. And there's just nothing not to love about this game. If you've never played Max Payne and you want an amazing shooter, I highly recommend this one. But beating it just by a hair is my number one favorite, Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. I adore this sequel. It shows Max a couple of years after the first game reuniting with Mona Sachs, who is this assassin character who we met in the first game. It's essentially something of a love story this time around. You essentially find out that several characters from the first game may have been involved in your family's murder, and basically the story continues, and you have to continue to take your revenge while also trying to protect Mona and work with her against these thugs and gangsters. I think the reason I love this one so much is it's basically a love story between Max and Mona. Mona Sachs is a great character, and in this game you actually get to play as her as well as Max. It's the only Max Payne game we get to play as more than one character. The story is great this time around. The graphics are really good for the year they came out. The soundtrack is great and even features a violin version of the Max Payne theme, which was used again in Max Payne 3. It's my favorite version of the theme, and it's just amazing here. And instead of snow this time around, it's rain. The first game featured a snow in New York, which led to like a dark and cold atmosphere, and the sequel is like a wet, damp, depressing atmosphere, and I love the way they captured it. There's also nightmare dream sequences, which were in the first game as well. At this time, they're ramped up much more than the first one, and all in all, they're just as great here. I adore this game, and I think it's one of the best third-person shooters ever made, and I've always had a soft spot for it, and it's my favorite of the Max Payne series. Well, that's my list. I very much enjoy these games, and there really is nothing not to love about this franchise. Even 20 years removed, the first two games still play great, and the third game, despite some of its flaws, is still amazing as well. I really would hope that maybe one day we get a fourth game to the franchise, but if we don't, I will settle for the remake of the first two, which I'm very much looking forward to. I thank you for watching. This is a series in which I love. I hope you go out and pick them all up. Thank you for watching, and peace out.